I used to read quite a bit when I was younger, especially in high school, but as the years went on and I started doing more things in my daily life, balancing work and personal projects, I stopped reading so much. And I'm sure many of you are in the situation that I used to be in, so I wanted to share some of the things I've done to start reading more often in my daily life. I've put timestamps in the description below in case you want to skip forward a bit, and we're going to start with one that's perhaps a little bit obvious, and that is to make reading a priority in your life. Time is a finite resource, so we only have a certain amount of hours every day to spend on the things we want to be doing. That means we might have to give up on some of the activities we're currently doing so we can spend that time on reading instead. It's totally up to you what you're willing to spend less time on. For some people that might be watching less TV or spending less time on the internet. If what's stopping you from reading more is that you don't have enough time, in that case some daily activity in your life is probably going to have to disappear in order to give you that extra time. So that tip was very general. Let's get now into some more specific things that you can do. So tip number 2 is audiobooks, and audiobooks are a great way to include reading into your daily life without having to make some extra time for it, because you can very easily listen to audiobooks while you do other things, such as like washing the plates or during your commute to work. So personally, I usually listen to it at 1.5 to 2 times its natural speed, but you can see with every specific audiobook which speed is preferable, because some of the narrators speak very quickly, some of them speak very slowly. It depends on every specific case. Some people say they have trouble concentrating on audiobooks, and at the start I also used to get distracted quite a bit, but this is something that you can just practice and get used to it. What I like to do is simply put the audiobook on and sit next to it, listen to it very closely for like 10 minutes, and after those 10 minutes then I can get up and do something else, and my mind is already like automatically concentrated on the audiobook. But this comes with practice, so if you've tried listening to audiobooks a couple times and it was a bit difficult to concentrate, definitely try it again. It's something that you can pick up over time. So tip number 3 is to simply read shorter books, and this is because you get the thrill of starting a new book plus the dopamine rush of having finished a book very close together, because the middle is very short. So that kind of makes it more exciting and rewarding, because you feel like you're making progress. And rather, if you read a very big book, then it feels like you're never reaching the end. So if you have problems finishing books that you start, you might want to just try reading shorter books so you can get to the end more frequently, and over time start to read longer and longer books. Tip number 4 is to create a habit and read a little bit every single day. So some people prefer to set time-related goals with this, for example, read 15 minutes every day, and other people prefer to do page-related goals, so like 20 pages every day. Making chapter-related goals can be a bit difficult, because in some books chapters are really short, sometimes they're really long. Even in the same book, sometimes some chapters can be shorter than others, so you won't be reading the same amount necessarily every single day. So the trick with building a habit is that even if you just read a little bit every day, this adds up very quickly over time. So let's say that you're reading 20 pages every day. By the end of the year, that's 7,300 pages in total. That's a lot of pages. And if we say that on average a book has around 300 pages, then just reading 20 pages a day adds up to 24 books a year. So that's a lot of books to be reading in a year, with generally a small time commitment on a daily basis. Tip number 5 is to join a book club. Book clubs are very effective in getting us to read more, because since it's a social activity, we kind of feel obligated to do the homework and read the book that we've been assigned for that month or that week. So book clubs can be like physical, in person, like you meet up with other people and discuss it together, but they can also be virtual, online, if you don't have any in-person book clubs close to you. I personally belong to 2 book clubs. One of them is hosted by my local library, and the other one is an online book club where we read a book from every country in the world, so like 1 book a month, and then we just discuss it on forum online. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to join that book club. Book clubs are just generally a way to help us discover books that we wouldn't otherwise have read, because usually the books are chosen by the host or between all of the members of the group, so often they end up picking things that you wouldn't have picked up yourself in a bookstore or in a library. Tip number 6 might be a little bit of a controversial one, and that is to abandon a book if you're not enjoying it. So sometimes we pick up a book thinking that we're gonna love it, but we end up not enjoying it that much when we actually start reading it. So if we continue reading books that we're not enjoying, then reading kind of starts to become a chore. It's no longer something that we're looking forward to. It's okay to just put it aside and pick up something else that we will enjoy more. And if you feel bad for abandoning a book, then you don't have to see it as an abandonment. You can also just put it aside and come back to it later in the future if you ever feel like picking it up again. Tip number 7 is to mix up the genres of the books you're reading, just so you can keep things fresh and make sure that you're always reading different content. So the thing is, we're more likely to find reading a bit repetitive if we keep reading books within the same genre or category. So if you read a lot of sci-fi, for example, maybe switch it up and try some non-fiction or like magical realism, something a bit different outside of the box from what you usually read. And tip number 8 is a bit similar to the previous one, and that is to read more than 1 book at once. And that's basically for the same reason as before, which is simply to mix things up a bit, try new things, especially if you're a mood reader, as in you want to read what you're in the mood for reading. Then if you're only reading 1 book and you don't feel like reading that 1 book at the moment, then you probably won't pick it up. But if you have like 3 different books, for example, then you can choose between your options to see which one you feel like reading. And some people think that this kind of hurts the immersion that you will have in each book, because you're kind of dividing your attention into the number of books that you're reading. But I personally see it as the opposite. And that is, oftentimes I've come up with ideas or like understood the theme of a book simply because I took such a long time to finish it. I found that when I read a book very quickly, all in one go, I'm more likely to forget about the plot much sooner than if I read it in different chunks. And not only that, but also when you're reading more than 1 book at the same time, you can't help but draw comparisons between the 2 different books that you're reading. So with this in mind, you can very easily like pair read 2 different books that are on the same topic, so you can purposefully draw some parallels between the 2. And the final tip is to participate in a reading challenge. And not everyone likes doing this. Some people don't want to set goals when it comes to reading because they feel like it might make it become more of a chore, or they feel pressure from the goals. And it's totally fine if this isn't your thing, but for some people who might want to gamify reading a bit more, this can be a pretty fun way to do this. There are many types of reading challenges, and some of the most popular goals that are based on how much you can read over the course of a year. So some people do 52 books for like 52 weeks in a year. Some people do 12 books a year or 24 books a year. The goal you choose in this category depends a lot on how much time you have. So you can set a lower goal to make sure that you reach it, or you can set a higher goal just so you can push yourself a bit more. Now some people, instead of counting books, they count pages, because it can be a bit difficult to read 52 books that are this big in 1 year. So if you think that setting a amount of books to read a year will discourage you from reading longer books that you would like to read, counting page goals can be a good alternative to that. So those are some of the most popular challenges, and then there are many other challenges that you can find on the internet, like the Reading Rush, or reading a book from every country, the Koreathon. I'll leave in the description below a whole lot of links to different challenges that you might want to check out. So those were my tips for reading more. I hope they helped you. If you use a different technique to read more that I haven't mentioned, put it below in the comments so that other people can read it. And happy reading!